I picked this dresser up off the curb because it's made out of solid wood, no particle board. And it's also missing a drawer, and the remaining drawers, they were all stuck in there. This one is still kind of stuck in that they were slammed shut so hard that the wheel popped out of the back here, and then the drawers stuck in there for good. And trying to get these drawers out, essentially some of the drawer fronts came off, and that's probably how it ended up on the curb. So I want to fix this up because it's actually not a bad dresser. This drawer here is still stuck. And then I had a better idea for getting that drawer out. There we go. I don't have the impression that these drawer fronts were actually glued on here. At least there was no glue residue. So that'll be easy to fix. And onto the next drawer. Somebody really messily glued a knob back on, and I'm just trying to use a sharp chisel to get the glue residue off without screwing up the varnish. I ended up re-gluing the fronts of all the drawers because even the ones that hadn't come apart, the front wasn't on there very tight and it was easy to knock it apart. Next, working on the body of the dresser. These right-angle knockdown fasteners suggest the whole dresser was a flat-pack piece of furniture assembled by the customer. And while I think that sort of thing is kind of ingenious in that a customer can assemble it and it holds together kind of okay, they're not really that strong. And I'm doing more of those knockdown fasteners to pop the frame apart. And these joints, just like the other ones, are just held together by those knockdown fasteners. There's no glue on the dowels at all. There was actually nothing wrong with the dresser frame. It wasn't falling apart. The reason I took it apart is so I could glue the joinery to make it stronger. And it's the weakness of those knockdown fasteners that often spells the end of IKEA-style furniture, or flat-pack furniture as it all is, because you can't expect the customer to actually glue it together because applying glue isn't difficult. But the fact is, if you screw up, it's really screwed up. You can't fix it if it's glued wrong. And if the customer doesn't have clamps and doesn't have experience, the odds of screwing it up are actually quite high. And now gluing the dowels that hold the top on, pliers like that are really great for pulling them out. And sanding it just to get better glue adhesion, and then gluing it back in. But then I changed my mind. So the thing is, the dowel has actually much less grip in the top because that hole is much shallower and it's cross grain. So it's much more important for that dowel to be all the way bottomed in that part, which means I'm better off hammering it into the top and then joining that to the sides rather than hammering the dowel into the sides and hoping it extends far enough into the top. I just noticed there's 2 dowels on this side and 3 on this, and that's a clever way of making sure that this part doesn't get stuck on here backwards, because the front lip is very different from the one on the back, so backwards would be a major screw up. Now I'm short by 1 drawer, and looking at the fronts of these drawers, these are glued together out of narrow pieces, so I ripped some 2x4 into strips and glued those together to make another front that's similar. And then cutting up some more pieces of wood, mostly scrap wood, to make the other parts of the drawer. This will be the front of the drawer, these are the sides, and this will be the back. Now I need to join that on here with dowels just like in the other drawer. And I'm using a self-centering dowel jig for that, and a wooden sleeve to control the drill depth. And then drilling those holes, and I'm just completely freehanding it, not even measuring where the holes go. And then just using a pencil to transfer the hole positions onto the front. And then drilling the dowel holes into the front with a Forstner bit, which has got a nice flat bottom. But then I realized a mistake. So I'd actually marked my hole positions on the wrong line, so they were too close to the edge, and luckily I noticed that while I only drilled one hole, and I hadn't even drilled that one all the way down, and the Forstner bit is good with overlapping holes, so no harm done. And then dry fitting the side I had just done. And then using it back as a spacer to figure out exactly where the holes needed to go for the other side. I don't know how you inches folks deal with that sort of thing, I just use a calculator. The front needs a slot cut into it for the plywood bottom to fit into, and I'm using 2 stacked circular saw blades as sort of a dado blade, and very carefully positioning that front over the blade because that slot needs to not extend all the way to either end. I would have preferred to cut that slot with a router, but I don't have a slot cutting bit of the right width. That fits good on the first try. And now clamping some squares to those corners. That way I can hold that joint rigid, which means I won't wiggle the joint while it's still drying when I work on the rest of the drawer. And the back corners are just attached together with screws, which is not up to my usual standards, but the fact is the other drawers have back corners just joined with screws, and there's no point in making this drawer that much better than the other ones. And this will be the bottom, which needs to fit into that slot in the front, but the ends of that slot are curved because I cut that with a circular saw blade. And it turned out the scrap I checked the thickness with was a bit thinner than the plywood I was actually using, so I had to trim it down a little bit on the table saw for it to fit in that slot I cut. This one is not completely identical to the existing drawers, so this one almost touches the back, whereas the other drawers leave a fair bit of gap. Also, this one is deeper because the existing drawers have the bottom inset like this into a slot, whereas I just nail it straight on the bottom, and that gives me about 1 centimeter of extra depth inside the drawer. Now, I haven't got any drawer pulls for this, so I'm going to try to turn some drawer pulls that match. And this blank should be more than enough to make 2 of these facing each other. Here's 2 knobs turned. Not as close as I would have liked, but I'm not going to make more. So just cutting that off with a bandsaw and then finishing it on a belt sander actually turned out nicer than I could have done on the lathe alone. Now I need to drill the holes in the drawer front, and I'm clamping a piece of wood to the back of it so that the drill doesn't break out too badly when it goes through. So satisfying to put those knobs in. I should have routed that round over earlier, but I'd like to leave it till the end because if I ding up the corners, they get routed away. I varnished a new drawer and a thin coat on the other ones to kind of hide some of the scratches, although some were brought out even more, and the color is of course a bit different. But if you look at where the knobs were, this isn't that different from this, so this will darken a bit over time. I'm using a drop of varnish as a thread locker and also behind it to keep that knob from spinning, so hopefully they won't come loose. There, that's not a bad dresser and a lot less work than building a new one. Now it just needs some kind of YouTube-y thumbnail. I just can't do that style of thumbnail, even though they really work. I think I'll go with that one.